Have you ever wanted a heavier soccer shoe?
No.
Have you ever wanted a bulkier touch on the ball?
Can't say that I have.
Have you ever wanted the styling of a winter boot in the form of a soccer shoe?
No, why would I want that?
Introducing the Puma 365.18 Ignite High ST. They'll make your friends say, "What are those?"
What? What's going on, guys? Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you my review plus on-feet video of what is a fairly questionable new product from Puma. Of course, I'm talking about the 365.18 Ignite High ST, which is like a street soccer turf shoe hybrid from the Puma brand. The styling is unusual to say the least. Dare I say that these things are straight up ugly. Everyone's gonna have their own opinion on that, of course, but how is the actual performance of the shoe? Does it fit well? Is it comfortable? Does it offer a nice touch on the ball? All of these things are going to be discussed in today's video. So if you wanna learn more about them, please stick around, watch the entire video. And if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below in the description, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $125 retail price, which in all honesty isn't that expensive for a mid-cut knitted soccer cleat these days, and it's also pretty well priced for a winter boot as well. For the sake of my own curiosity, and because it is easily the most controversial aspect of this shoe, I'm gonna leave a little pop-up poll in the corner of the screen where you guys can vote either yes or no on whether or not you like the look of this new street soccer shoe from Puma. I have an idea of what the results are going to be like, but I am still curious to see what the final results will be after everyone leaves their opinion. The looks of a soccer shoe have nothing to do with the fit, feel, and performance characteristics. However, the looks of a shoe are really what's going to draw people to that product. If they think it's ugly or unattractive, they are far less likely to buy it. And we've had a lot of really good products over the years that people did not want to try simply based on how it looks. And this is going to be another one of those examples, not to say that this is a really, really good product, but even if it was a top tier indoor shoe based simply on how it looks, people would totally not give this shoe a chance. So in that regard, I think Puma has made a bit of a mistake here in regards to the edginess of the design, because I think that's what they were going for here, some kind of shock value. They knew that this shoe looked unusual. It was just a matter of whether or not the public would kind of catch on and think, hey, this is more cool rather than just weird. And I think most people are gonna look at this design and say, hey, that's kind of weird looking. To me, if you told me this was a sneaker, I'd say, hey, it's a weird looking sneaker, but I get why people would like it. If you told me it was a soccer cleat or a soccer shoe, I would say, hey, it's kind of weird looking. I don't think people are gonna want that. I wouldn't necessarily want to wear it either. And this is simply in kind of an all black colorway. Can you imagine this in a bright neon yellow or something like that? They would look that much more goofy. So in regards to the design of the shoe, there's a lot going on. You have different materials here at the toe. You have some open mesh, you have some fused material on top, you have some synthetic leather, you have some cables which attach the laces to the shoe, then you have this little plastic bit on either side. You have the Puma branding across the front of the forefoot with an elasticated band. That's in kind of like an army green color. You have the Puma 365 logo right there, which is stitched on and looks kind of cheap. You have this padded mesh material going through the lacing area as well as around the heel, which I think looks kind of cheap as well. You have an elasticated strap going around the outside of the collar, which is kind of weird. It's a mid-cut shoe, a fairly high mid-cut shoe at that, with a knitted material, this being their Evo knit material in black as well as kind of like an army green color. You have a pull tab front and back, and then you have a black midsole with kind of a combination of all the different colors in like a camo effect pattern here on the base of the outsole. Is it a weird looking shoe? Yes. Is it an unusual design? Yes. Is it a good looking indoor soccer shoe that people are gonna wanna buy? Probably not. I should also mention that this is the high cut variation of this particular shoe. You can get the exact same model in a low cut version, which roughly looks exactly like this particular shoe, minus the collar. So if you were to trim it around this edge right here, that is kind of what the low cut variation looks like. I would say the low cut one looks more attractive, or at least more normal in comparison to this shoe, but even minus the collar, I still think it's one of those designs that most people just aren't going to like the look of. So let's go over the materials and performance characteristics of this shoe, because there's a lot to cover. The front part of the upper is made up of a couple different types of materials. You're gonna find this mesh part in the middle that looks kind of open. There's several layers of mesh there, so it does have some breathability to it, but water's not necessarily just gonna pass right through it, or air's not gonna pass right through it really easily if you're wondering. It does have somewhat of a padded feel. And then you have this fairly thick fused material on the edge going around the toe, cutting across the middle of the forefoot. If you look underneath this elasticated strap, it cuts right across that middle part right there. And I think part of the reason why this elasticated strap here, it is listed as a performance feature for the sake of structural integrity, but as you can see, it's very, very loose. It just doesn't fit very tight to the shoe, and it doesn't offer any kind of structure when your foot's inside the shoe either. It's there more so just to cover up that seam and for the sake of design. I personally don't think it looks bad, but it is kind of unusual to have this loose piece of material on top of your foot, but they have it there for whatever reason. But that fused material continues pretty much all along the outside edge. You can see it across the top right here, and that's what's creating structure to what is basically a mesh-based material for the entirety of the upper. So it goes all the way through the midfoot, forefoot on both sides of the shoe, again, giving you the necessary structure for a performing soccer cleat upper. You're also gonna find that on this outside edge, again, as more of a structure element to kind of cover up these cables, you have a synthetic leather material, and it is synthetic leather, not real leather, on either side of the shoe. It's kind of just there for the sake of extra bulk. I really think they could have done without this and still would have been able to execute this design pretty easily. And then through the middle of the shoe, you're gonna find a padded mesh material, which honestly, I think just looks really, really cheap. I do not like how they did this, but it fills in the middle part of the upper, extends into this piece, which I think is just so bulky and unnecessary. And then it flows into the heel area as well, which realistically, there's an internal heel counter, so this extra material is not really doing anything other than just giving the shoe a bulkier look in general. It's a consistent material as what you'll find through the midfoot of the upper, but I just don't think that it looks all that good, so I'm not sure that why they would put so much of it on this particular shoe. As far as the heel area is concerned, you're gonna find that Evo knit material giving you this mid-cut design. So it's kind of filling in the part that would otherwise just be empty, because this is, I guess, originally designed as a low-cut shoe, which is pretty clear to see with this particular design, which is kind of why it looks so strange. And this Evo knit material is actually relatively thick, but it's got a nice elasticated sensation to it. Is this really providing any kind of ankle support? Because you have this extra bit on the front that has a decent amount of thickness to it, plus you have this kind of elasticated band that is sewn right here, goes all the way along the back. It's not attached to the lacing system and then kind of ends right there. So it's not attached to anything, but it does fit fairly tight for a collar. I wouldn't necessarily go as far as to say that this is providing any kind of legitimate ankle support, but it definitely does feel bulkier in the ankle area than pretty much any other soccer shoe that I've personally ever worn. So if that's something that you like for the sake of protection or just for the sake of your ankles feeling more safe, then this has more ankle structure than any other soccer shoe that I've personally ever worn. I personally do not really like how it feels though. You have a pull tab at the front as well as the back, which is nice in terms of putting the shoes on and taking them off. And then as far as the lacing system is concerned, it's kind of unusual in that the laces are only or I guess technically 4 lacing positions, and they're directly in the middle. It doesn't go very low, and it doesn't necessarily go all that high, although I would say it's sufficient in terms of locking your foot in place. You're gonna find cables, so little loops that extend out from underneath this little synthetic leather piece, and then they do actually extend into the base of the sole. So it is kind of like a flywire cable system that you would see from Nike here on a Puma shoe, and it attaches the laces on either side of the upper until eventually it goes into this little plastic bit, which is basically just a dual lace hole system, but because it's a mesh and not a knitted material, they use the plastic for the sake of structure. So it goes in the first lace hole, comes out the second lace hole on either side, an effective system that we've seen from pretty much every single brand at this point, so not surprising that Puma is doing it now too. All of that to say that they feel as bulky as they look, which is a bit of a disappointment because I knew that the shoe going into this review was really unattractive and people wouldn't like it simply because of that reason, but I was hoping maybe the really unattractive shoe would be really good in terms of performance, but honestly, I'm not crazy about the touch that this has on offer. You have so many different materials going on. There's inconsistency in terms of the front not being as padded as the midfoot, which just has a lot of extra bulk, especially on the lower points when you are passing and controlling the ball. I don't really like the added structure, and I guess somewhat of a loss of freedom of mobility in the ankle that you get because of this design. It's not unmanageable, you don't necessarily feel restricted, but there's just that little bit of resistance that I find to be slightly annoying that you wouldn't have on pretty much any other soccer shoe that I've either worn, either mid-cut or low-cut, so I'm not a huge fan of that. Although keep in mind, all these materials will stretch a little bit over time, so it's not necessarily something that would be consistently an issue, but just in regards to touch overall, I'm not really sure why you would want this over other options out there. It's just not all that great. Internally, the shoe has a nice synthetic suede liner with a decent amount of padding, and really the fit in the heel, despite being mid-cut, feels pretty much like a low cut shoe. It doesn't have that chafing at the back like you find with a lot of Nike mid-cut models, if that's something that you're wondering. And then the insole is fully removable. Here's a look at it. It just features a simple mesh liner on top and is made from a single layer of this blue foam. Not a particularly fancy insole, but this is what's going to be providing a lot of the underfoot cushioning, especially in the forefoot toe box area, because there isn't much of a midsole past the midfoot area of the shoe. The midsole and outsole is pretty decent. It's pulled from other indoor models that we've seen in the past. It features their Ignite foam running through the heel, through the midfoot. I know it looks pretty substantial from this angle, but you actually sit deeper in the shoe. This is actually more of a carrier that extends a little bit higher on the outside. So it's a very thin layer of foam, decent quality foam, but honestly nothing exceptional in terms of underfoot cushioning. And as far as the outsole is concerned, this is the only variation that they make this particular shoe in. So there isn't like a flat indoor bottom, it's only this turf variation. But this is really kind of a multi-purpose type outsole in that you do have this turf bottom. So you can use it on a turf surface, which is like a rough kind of carpet type material. You can also use this on artificial grass, which is the plastic blades of grass with the rubber pellets. And I would say you can also use this in a street soccer type environment because the type of rubber that they use is actually on the softer side. So the amount of grip that something like this provides on a concrete type surface is actually pretty decent, and you're going to get decent durability out of it as well. Again, just given the type of rubber that they've used. So not a ton of underfoot cushioning, good flexibility for the most part, at least through the forefoot. The heel and ankle area, like I mentioned, just has a lot of extra bulk to it that you wouldn't normally find on a soccer shoe. But for the most part, I actually think that the midsole and outsole they've used here is pretty decent. So they're unattractive, they're on the bulkier side. Surely they can't be heavy as well. Well, unfortunately, they do weigh a little bit more than the average indoor shoe. In a size 9.5 US, these guys weigh in at 12.1 ounces, which if you're comparing this to the competitors out there, meaning other high-end indoor turf shoes, also in a mid-cut variation, those are gonna weigh in anywhere around 10 to 11 ounces in the same size, which is lighter than these, but not by a whole lot. I wouldn't say that really any of the mid-cut shoes out there right now, as far as indoor shoes are concerned, are super, super lightweight. So these aren't necessarily going to feel super heavy in comparison to those other models. But if you're looking for that lightweight feel in general, this probably isn't gonna be the best option for you. Although I would think if you're looking for something light and minimal, you're probably not gonna be attracted to these in the first place. As you can see, I swapped out the stock black laces for some red reflective SR4U replacement laces, which match the little Puma logo there on the side, and in my opinion, make them look a little bit less like winter boots, which is definitely a win-win situation. So if you are interested in a pair of SR4U laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. There'll be a little pop-up on screen, as well as a link down below in the description of this video. So if you're interested in a pair, be sure to go ahead and check that out. On feet, despite looking a little bit weird, the shoes themselves are actually quite comfortable, which shouldn't be too surprising since the majority of the upper is made out of a padded mesh material. So to a certain extent, it has that sock-like sensation, but imagine a very bulky, fairly structured sock. You definitely do notice a little bit of firmness in material around the forefoot toe box area where you have that thicker fuse, but it's there for a reason and honestly doesn't feel bad in any way at all. The midfoot definitely has more padding to it. I don't love the way that this feels more so on the ball. You don't really notice it on feet, but there's just a lot of extra padding there that you wouldn't necessarily have. And I feel like some people would actually really like, but I do like the way they did the lacing system and that the position for the laces where they actually attach on either side, it's fairly low on both the lateral and medial side of the shoe. So when you tie the laces tight, despite there not really being that many lacing positions, it's a fairly shallow lacing system. You do actually get a good amount of tightness across the entirety of your foot, which is really, really good. The strap, like I said, pretty much does nothing. You can see very little force just to stretch it up. It really is not doing anything. It's there for the sake of looks. And again, the comfort in the heel area is pretty much that of a low cut shoe. So there's really nothing to get used to or break in with this particular model. It's just a little bit of extra material in the ankle area that I guess feels more unusual, but definitely not uncomfortable. As far as width is concerned, they've got a decent amount of width to them. I would go as far as to say that these will fit just about anybody. Wouldn't necessarily expect them to stretch all that much just because it's already mesh, so they should stretch when you put them on, even before breaking them in. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing a size 9.5 US, which is about a half size larger than my usual size 9 US. And the reasoning for that is because they do run a half size small, as do a lot of Puma products. So if you are looking to order a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going a half size up in order to achieve the best possible fit. So to summarize what this shoe is all about and whether or not I would recommend it, I don't think that they're bad. So in that regard, I can recommend them. If you like the way that they look, you like a more heavy, padded feel on the ball, and you like something that just has a more structured construction to it overall, not to mention because of the heavy duty materials they've used on this shoe, I think it's going to be a particularly durable product as well, which can't be said about a lot of street soccer shoes. If that all sounds really good and you can get past the way that they look, then I definitely think that this is a product that you should be looking into. However, if you don't like the way they look and you'd prefer something mid-cut, but also something that's lighter, a little bit more minimal, offers a better quality upper in general, then I definitely do think that there are better options out there. But despite everything that I said about these shoes in this video, they are bulkier, they are heavier, and it obviously isn't the best looking shoe in the world. It's actually not that bad of a product. But they look like winter boots, so almost none of that matters. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review. Again, if you're interested in a pair for yourself, it's the first link down below. Be sure to go ahead and check that out. If you have any questions for me regarding this particular product, as always, leave them down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. Other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.